Hello, good afternoon. Welcome. Thanks for joining us today. We're delighted to have, again for a second time, Josh Sigel and talking to you about the SHŌ enterprise. I know that some of you may have seen this before, and so thank you for coming back again. Just a little housekeeping. We're broadcasting live from you're in LA, right? No, you're in San Francisco, Josh, right? And I happen to be on the East Coast. And so we're going to be recording this and posting on the Family Office Insights YouTube channel, I think, Josh, as long as you'll let us do that. And
Absolutely.
So when you are guests, when you are getting the opportunity to hear what you have to hear today, if there's anybody in your community network or business-wise who would potentially be interested in what we're up to here, we'd certainly welcome you connecting directly with Josh or reviewing the video on the Family Office Insights YouTube channel where we post it elsewhere. But we'll make sure post a webinar that we get everybody directly in touch with Josh. And big shout out to Tara Kelly, who has catalyzed this whole thing. I'm so happy. She's a longtime friend of mine to have introduced me to Josh, and so we get to be the beneficiaries of learning about this opportunity, not just in San Francisco, but in a hospitality way elsewhere. So keep that in mind if you think others would benefit from hearing what you hear today or connecting directly with Josh as an investor. We certainly welcome that. We can't hear or see you. We know you're there. If somebody wouldn't mind just saying hello in the chat box, make sure we're broadcasting. It looks like we are. Zoom's pretty bulletproof. Please post your questions as they come to mind. We have a lot of people joining today. We have about an hour, so we'll get to as many questions as possible. And so, again, thank you for being here. So we're going to do a short introduction and then get into the meat of the matter. Thank you for that shout out there. Thank you for broadcasting. Josh, thanks for being here. Welcome back.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You bet. You can take it away.
All right. Well, good morning, I think, to most of us, or good afternoon for those who are on the, I should probably say good afternoon to most of us, and good morning still to those of us on the West Coast. My name is Josh Sigel. I'm the CEO and founder of SHŌ Group. SHŌ Group is an experiential hospitality platform that has begun our journey with our flagship location in San Francisco. It's a pretty extraordinary location for our first venture. The actual location itself is on Salesforce Park, and just to back up a second, SHŌ Group is, as I mentioned, an experiential hospitality platform. We're focused on fine dining, retail, as well as catering and events. You can really think of SHŌ, the initial brand. We like to kind of use maybe the analog of the next Nobu. We think there's a lot of opportunity, certainly in the space. Japanese fine dining continues to be on the rise and is incredibly popular. And as everyone likely knows, Nobu has been very successful over the years in terms of building a global brand, and we plan on doing that as well. So what I wanted to do to just open up today's conversation was to share a video that we've put together that really articulates the vision for this flagship location. As Art mentioned, we have expansion plans and certainly have the ambition to take this model into other major metropolitan cities, not only here in the U.S. but also abroad. But we really are focusing today on this first location, and so we wanted to share what that entails, and hopefully you'll find that this video does a pretty good job of that.
Looks and sounds good, Josh.
Great.
Nice.
All righty.
Thank you for that. So I didn't know where you wanted to start, but maybe we could give the audience the benefit of how this all came about.
Yeah, I've been in the hospitality space, really the food industry, my whole career. I've been working at the intersection of food and technology, and my partner Shotaro Kamio, who is really the gifted creative and culinary mind behind the operation. He has been chefing in the Bay Area for over 20 years. Came from Japan when he was 18, 19 years old, started working in the Bay Area. And the story goes that, he was chefing at a restaurant called Ozamo. He was constantly taking care of one of their frequent patrons. This gentleman would come in, every day, 5 days a week for both lunch and dinner. And that ended up being Mark Benioff. As most know, the CEO of Salesforce. And so when Salesforce purchased the naming rights to this particular transit center, for those who don't know, the transit center is literally smack dab in the middle of San Francisco. It's a beautiful structure. It was, been many, many years in the making. Many people refer to it as, the Grand Central Station of the West. SHŌ and I were introduced, and Mark mentioned this opportunity. And so SHŌ and I began to, given our interest in food and hospitality, technology, we came together and started to really kind of develop the vision for what you see today, which is SHŌ Group and our flagship brand SHŌ. So that's kind of how, the project initially began. We started this in 2019 when we originally signed the lease. Obviously, COVID, delayed things and gave us an opportunity to rethink our strategy. We went from, the ambitions of a single location to thinking about this in a much larger, thinking of this as a much larger opportunity, which is really how we landed on developing what we call, a hospitality platform, and leveraging, my background both in food and technology, grocery, retail, and restaurants, and of course SHŌ, who has a highly acclaimed restaurant in the Bay Area that he has that's been open for almost 10 years now, called Iasare, bringing those two worlds together to create SHŌ. So that's really how the whole project started. I've been working in, as I mentioned, the food industry, starting more in corporate technology. I ran technology for a company by the name of UNFI, which is the largest distributor of, at the time, organic and natural foods, but now has expanded to conventional grocery as well. Then I moved on to work with my former partner, who was the CEO of Nestle, was running Nestle actually in Mexico, and then was running Unilever here in North America. He had an idea for a food technology company, and so I moved out to Silicon Valley to start that with him. And that's kind of how I got to the Bay Area. And then, we came upon this opportunity. We were one of, 5 other groups who were all vying for the space. As you can see from the video, it's really an iconic location. All the major office buildings, from Salesforce to Facebook, to other financial service industries, law firms, all of those buildings all surround the park and essentially look down upon it. So it really makes for one of these kind of once in a lifetime opportunities. And as soon as we saw the location, we said, we have to make this happen.
So this is probably a good time for me to disclose to the group that I have a economic interest in the success of the project, but not in a success fee of your investment, just to be super clear. Just shareholder like everybody else. So I forgot to disclose it at the beginning, but we're super excited about the opportunity. And the one thing that got me really interested was the work that Josh has done in wrangling the property and a variety of other, I don't want to call them concessions, but financing opportunities and that sort of thing that, bureaucrats being what they are, is hard to wrangle and wrestle. And Josh has done it. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, thank you. There's, I think there's a couple different I always jokingly say, but there's quite a bit of truth in it. I would never recommend typically someone investing in a restaurant. It traditionally, as many know, it can be a tough industry and it's a tough business. However, I would highly recommend investing in this project, and there's a number of reasons why. First one being that we've really de-risked the project through the lease. And to give further details on that, the lease is a 15-year lease with 2 5-year renewals. We've fully negotiated our rent, including percent rent, through the duration of that period. So for 25 years, we know exactly what we're paying in rent for all those years. And what we did through a considerable amount of engineering and design is the lease was structured really based on 5,000 square feet. The main space is really what was leased to us. The second floor was essentially, for lack of a better phrase, thrown in. And the reason for that was that at the time, the TGPA, which is a public entity who happens to own the park and the land that the restaurant sits on, they were under the impression that the second floor of the restaurant was not enclosable, and thus not really monetizable. We were able to hire, fire life safety experts and architects to work with the Department of Building Inspection to get the approval to enclose the second floor, which essentially created an additional 5,000 square feet of monetizable space, virtually doubling the size of the space. And then along with some additional creative engineering, you may not have been able to tell in the video, but the main dining room is actually subterranean. It sits about 6 feet or so below the park surface. And the reason for that is that the park is built up with soil and foam. So that essentially creates a subterranean dining room experience, which is really pretty cool. And then those ceilings are about 18 feet high, which enabled us to subdivide the space towards the rear of the location. And we're able to basically build a full kitchen and then a private dining mezzanine above that, which creates an additional about 1,500 square feet of dining, and monetizable space. And then lastly, we were able to add about 3,500 square feet of patio and outdoor dining, which we all know how critical that is in the days of COVID. So that space will be, about 65 to 70 outdoor seats with fire pits, full heating system overhead to allow, that space to be utilized throughout the year. And so all of this work essentially delivered roughly about 15,000 square feet of space. So the lease today we're really sitting at around 75 to 80% below market in terms of what we're paying per square foot over the term of the lease, which is pretty incredible. And when people look at this space, firstly, they're thinking to themselves, wow, this must cost a fortune in terms of rent. And in fact, it's actually the opposite. So that's really the name of the game. And this then turns into something that is pretty spectacular in terms of, being able to deliver a 20% IRR conservatively to investors, which is akin to more of a private equity investment. Obviously, you have the incredible benefits of being a part of this location, as well as the additional locations that we're looking to open. And then the last piece that Art, I think, had kind of alluded to is that in addition to kind of the creative engineering and incredibly advantageous lease structure, we also have been working with the state of California to get supported in some small business loans. And so what they've done is there's a number of programs that we've been able to tap into, and we've been able to circle through about 3 different separate programs that we were able to bring together around $11 million in debt that is essentially secured by the state of California. And we're doing that through our banking partner called Bridge Bank. So that debt, along with the membership sale component, which we can get into in a little bit, brings quite a bit of non-dilutive capital to the project. And then the lease structure, combined with the lease structure, really makes for a pretty unique overall investment opportunity, and really sets us up for long-term success, from a financial standpoint.
And then I'm not going to use the right word, but there's a abatement, or at least a time period where you actually, from a cash flow perspective, there's not a payment required for the lease, right?
Correct. Yeah. They're approximately first 3 years of the lease are essentially rent free. And that period begins upon permitting, which hasn't occurred yet. And then from the time of permitting, we have about 9 months essentially of a construction period where we're not paying, for the lease either. So you take the 3 years of rent free plus the 9 months of that period that will begin, once we are permitted. And we're looking, at around roughly 45 months of free rent. That gives us, a lot of time to basically take the distributable cash from the project, which is essentially, cash flow positive day one, and really kind of plow that back to investors. We've structured the investment structure so that investors are receiving 90% of the distributable cash until their investment is returned. And we forecast that to be anywhere from 2 to 3 years, conservatively, not taking into consideration, membership sale proceeds, which could be north of, $20 million. So assuming we sell out all of those memberships, which we expect to do, we just to give, some sense of interest, we did a pre-sale of around 100 memberships to kind of just gauge interest level, and to begin to kind of test the waters. And we sold out all of those memberships to the tune of about $1 million within about 2 weeks. So we've put that on hold. We're continuing to kind of work on the development and structure, and all the kind of strategy around, what it takes to have a membership component, along with really what is first and foremost a restaurant and nightlife hospitality experience. But we anticipate once those memberships begin to sell, that those top line sales that obviously have a pretty low cost in terms of, the variable costs needed to create those memberships and support them, that those dollars too will go to, quickly offset and pay back investors.
So essentially non-dilutive capital, to the extent that the memberships aren't tied to equity, right?
That's right. Yeah. So you're looking at, anywhere between debt and membership sales, roughly like $40 million of non-dilutive capital coming into the project to not only support construction, but more importantly, it kind of creates a very quick path to pay back investors.
What's the barrier, aside from capital raise, which is what we're talking about today, for the permitting?
We'll be fully permitted within the next 4 weeks. So what's unique, people hear how difficult it is to build within San Francisco. And what's unique about the TGPA, which stands for the Joint Transit Powers Authority, I kind of liken it to like the Vatican, similar structure, in that it's its own entity that essentially owns this property. It's a transit authority. So it's not really governed by the city, it's really governed by a different organization, and they have their own permitting authority. They emulate, in terms of building code, they emulate, the city of San Francisco, but they are able to fast track any permitting that is done within the structure of the transit center, and control that pretty much soup to nuts. So given that, we are and given their eagerness to see this project come to fruition, we're in a very good situation in terms of when we want to start construction, we'll be able to start. And speaking of that, we've worked very hard to parallel path construction and the preparation of construction with our fundraising efforts. So we're really now at a point where, as soon as we have all of the funds required to build the project, we will be able to move forward with construction within a matter of weeks. And we have a full team that's already been staffed. We're going through all of the pre-construction requirements and process right now. And to answer your question again, we'll be ready, including fully permitted, within I would say at the latest by the end of February.
Great. So, can we talk a little bit about uh, how much you're raising, how much you've raised?
Excuse me, well, I'm just gonna pull the shade down here so I don't get
Yeah,
blind here.
yeah. There you go.
Yeah, so we're raising $20 million. We're raising that through a convertible note. However, we were open to other structures depending on interests and needs. We wanted to raise a convertible just because we think that brings investors some additional flexibility and de-risks the investment to a certain extent. The total project in terms of the construction itself is approximately $30 million. And that includes, what you'd call like owner supplied equipment, all the furnishings, et cetera. That 30 million covers both the restaurant location as well as a fast casual grocery, Japanese grocery retail concept that we're also developing in the lower level. That facility will also include about a 2,300 square foot catering and event space, or not really an event space, but a catering kitchen to support events. So the total dollar amount is covering, the fine dining location on the park level, and that Japanese market, what we call SHŌ market, and fast casual retail concept. For those of you who've ever been to LA, there's a restaurant called Sugarfish, which has become very popular. It's a great, sushi restaurant known for its quality. They offer these really cool bento boxes. We're leveraging some of that inspiration, but looking to develop something that is a little bit more of a Japanese market concept, so that people can come in, buy lunch, drinks, groceries, things of that nature, and also then have an incredible bento box, with the same fish made by the same chefs, same level of quality that you would experience in what we hope to be, a Michelin-starred Japanese culinary experience on the rooftop that will obviously be a fine dining location. So that's kind of high level, the total dollars needed, how the construction dollars are being utilized. And, we've been working extensively with our contractor, who's been, going out to bid and really working on value engineering the project. Obviously, building on top of the rooftop comes with its challenges, but the location is just really extraordinary. So we're excited about how far we've come, how many things we've overcome over the years, to get to this point. And as far as we can see right now, we have a clear runway. So we're ready to go. Construction, plans are all in order, and now it's just a matter of finalizing the capital.
So the insightful people or smart people have asked the question a few times about the complications of doing business on the rooftop, and I think you guys cleverly solved that. You want to talk a little bit about that solution?
In
Just
terms of
because of the
getting
proximity with the crane going on that other piece of property, as
Sure,
opposed
yeah. So there's been some questions. How do you actually build on this incredible location? I probably can bring up a visual while we're discussing, but essentially there is a vacant lot that Heinz owns. They're going to be building, from what we understand right now, it's going to be mixed use, both a hotel as well as office space. It'll be the third tallest tower in the Bay Area, and that hasn't been built yet. So currently there's just a large plot of land, and we have been working with the owners of that land to get permission to station a crane there, which will then enable us to bring materials up onto the roof without having to disturb traffic or close major city streets down and all those kinds of things. So that's essentially what we're the direction we're heading in. There's some things that we have to be mindful of, given the fact that there's a 1 million square foot train box that actually sits below the center. So within the next 10 years, the plan is for high-speed rail to be brought into that transit center, which of course we would be, incredibly will benefit from incredibly. And there's plans, there's discussions around high-speed rail from LA to San Francisco, from San Jose, Amtrak, all those good things. Clearly, that stuff takes a long time, a lot of politics involved, but from what we can see, the city, the state is highly committed, to bringing high-speed rail into that property. So essentially, that train box also has to be accounted for, when you're stationing a crane and you have essentially a hollow, underground terminal the size of Penn Station below ground. That's something that has also had to be, thought about. So we're through all of that, thankfully, and now we're pretty much finalizing just getting that crane permitted and getting the final approvals that we need. But as far as we can see right now, all of that should go pretty smoothly from here. But that's been about a 6-month project just to kind of figure that component out.
The to the extent that you can talk about it, what caused Salesforce Ventures and Benioff to vote with their checkbook, and to what extent have they, aside from really loving SHŌ's food?
Well, I think it starts there, and that's, Mark himself is a avid Japanese cuisine, aficionado. He loves sushi. He also keeps kosher styles, so he tends to gravitate towards fish and things of that nature. But really, their interest in the project, first and foremost, I think it started at our team. Does this team, starting with SHŌ and I, have the capacity, the expertise and experience to pull off something of this scale? And I think the answer certainly is yes. We feel very confident about that. Followed quickly by their interest in wanting to see an experience like this brought to San Francisco. For many who are familiar with San Francisco, we really don't have the level of experiential cuisine and nightlife destinations as other major metropolitan cities like Miami, LA, etc. That being said, we're more than confident that SHŌ will be able to compete in those other cities when the time is right. But that's really why Salesforce and some of our other investors initially got involved, was just their deep level and deep interest in wanting to see this concept that we have dreamt come to fruition, and be able to bring something to the Bay Area that ultimately doesn't exist. They think it's good for business. It's good for all of the employees that they have located, in the city. And even now with COVID and the fact that more people are working from home, their interest has increased, in fact, in terms of what we're doing, because a lot of the corporations in San Francisco, and I think this is true for other major cities as well, they're looking for ways of engaging their employee base. They're looking for private events, opportunities to, take people out, to bring, small groups together. We've had a tremendous amount of inquiries already regarding, event space, private dining spaces, people trying to reserve for holidays, Christmas 2024, etc. For full buyouts. There's been a lot of interest at that level. So Salesforce Ventures, as well as Jeff Lawson, who's the CEO of Twilio, Drew Houston, who's the CEO of Dropbox, a gentleman by the name of Dan Springer, who was the former CEO of DocuSign, Craig Ramsey, all of them, certainly didn't just invest because, they wanted a cool place to go to eat. They first and foremost really pressure tested the financial aspect of this project. Is this a viable investment, and do they really believe in the kind of long-term economic outlook? And I think the answer certainly was yes for them. But then in addition to that, it was very much about, the additive nature of an experience like this, what it can do for the city of San Francisco, and of course, as we expand for other cities as well.
Yeah, bringing people back to the office too, right? So
Yeah, I mean, the city of San Francisco is really kind of looking at this project as, as a major factor in bringing people back to the city, and creating something that is a destination location. We're often asked, why did you guys go so big? Why is the project so ambitious? Maybe you could have reduced the cost of construction if you've maybe just wanted to finish one floor and not, had done the, both floors, etc. And the answer to that is that we're really trying to create something that is truly world class. That starts with the design, and the overall kind of look and feel of the space. We know that service is of the utmost importance, and of course, last but not least, but probably the most important thing is the culinary experience and the food component. But this truly is going to be a destination location. This is not a restaurant that you just happen to kind of run into. This is something that we plan for it to be among the top 10 restaurants, certainly in the Bay Area, one of the top in the nation, a place where tourists will want to go when they come into town, certainly business travelers. And of course, locals, who are really yearning for a place to be able to go and have a drink, late at night, a cool place to hang out, something that would be akin to kind of a nightlife lounge experience. If you think of like a Tao or a Lavo in New York, or a Budokan, or kind of what those experiences look and feel like, particularly later in the evening, that's something that the city of San Francisco doesn't really have, and that's a white space that we're planning on capitalizing on.
So how does forgive me for using this, it's a hybrid in as much as that there's membership, but it's also open to the public to make reservations and dine. What's the membership component look like?
Yeah, it's a great question. For those who kind of track the hospitality space, we started this well over a year ago. I would say that the membership model is certainly on the rise. And I think there's a lot of reasons for that, primarily being driven by, this post-COVID world where we're all looking for more connection, more opportunities to network, other ways of getting out of the house for those of us who work from home. And we're seeing, everyone from like the major food group, which is behind Carbone in New York, and of course their location in Las Vegas, to other, major hospitality groups looking at the membership model and beginning to integrate that, into their overall business architecture. For us, the membership component of SHŌ, which is called SHŌ Club, is really about delivering an elevated and exclusive experience above and beyond what you as a member of the public can obtain simply by coming through the doors or booking a reservation. I think first and foremost, if you're not a member, it will probably be more difficult, certainly, to get a reservation. Members will have, priority reservation access. They'll have access to a unique menu with exclusive offerings that we'll be importing or flying in. We'll also have areas within the space that are only designated, for members. And then lastly, and I think probably the most important component of membership, is a lot of the membership events and programming, that we'll be offering as well. What we've heard loud and clear from members and people who have shown an interest in membership has been, the interest in diversity, in unique, obviously, access to really incredible culinary experiences, but also, looking for a level of diversity among the members as well as in the programming. So we're really going to be focusing on bringing some really one-of-a-kind experiences and events, into the space, and even outside of the four walls of the space as well. And so, those are, I think, some of the kind of highlights of what the membership looks like, and kind of how that relates to the overall public dining experience. The good news about having a restaurant that's open to the public with a membership component is that, it really kind of, I think, eliminates or puts a lot less, I would say a lot less pressure on the members themselves to have to support, the business from a food and beverage standpoint. So, we won't have food and beverage minimums for members. We'll be able to, support the restaurant from the public interests. That's why the P&L looks so healthy in terms of the forecast, but the membership component is kind of above and beyond, what we'll be offering in terms of an incredible, culinary and nightlife experience.
The things that I enjoyed, I mean, this has been some time, but the cultural experiences at the core club where there were things happening that, even though it was exclusive membership, they really did a good job of creating events that you just wouldn't otherwise. And Soho House does that to extent also, but I think that is really important to recognize that is for the members and valuable for membership, right? That's sort of the curation of those events, cultural curation.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a big piece of it. And then of course, access. I think most people enjoy, the ability to come into a space that is coveted, limited in terms of access. And again, despite the restaurant being open to the public, sometimes I use the analogy, it's like flying first class. Oftentimes it's not really, maybe it's not as fun or doesn't feel as elevated if you were to get into a plane, sit in first class, and the coach section was empty. Oftentimes people are okay with and kind of enjoy the ability to have certain access, amongst a larger community. And I think, we really feel, first and foremost, the restaurant is on public property. So we're somewhat obligated to have to, keep it accessible to the public. But the membership component really gives us an opportunity to curate and create, experiences and provide a level of access and service that you just can't do, at scale. One of the things that we share when we talk about the importance of community, which is really what the membership is all about, is that, during COVID, SHŌ, who has a restaurant called the Asare in Berkeley, it was really, those regulars. It was the people who have been going to Asare for 10 years, who love the food, who love the experience, who have become, friendly with the manager, the wait staff. Those were the individuals who were calling nonstop saying, hey, can we order delivery? Hey, what can we do to help support you guys? And through COVID, the restaurants who kind of made it through the COVID gauntlet and are here today to talk about it, I think what really made the big difference for many of those restaurants was those communities. Did you have a customer base who wanted to go out of their way to ensure that you were going to be able, that your restaurant was going to stay open and that you were going to be there, when we got through all of this. And that was, that was incredible to see in terms of, Asare and SHŌ and his reputation and what he was able to create, in terms of that community, not even identifying it as such, but then kind of seeing it as things, became very challenging for the business. And so, for us, we really see the opportunity to facilitate and create a community around this experience as something that can be pretty unique. And particularly as we open up additional locations in other major metropolitan cities and hopefully globally, those members, will also, those benefits, at least for this initial location, those benefits will transcend, to other locations as well. So you as a member or as an initial member of SHŌ Club will also have access and be able to experience, the other venues that we open up over time. And I think that we'll be able to really create a very, very compelling and very unique community, by being thoughtful around the way we curate those members. We'll have an application process, but ultimately it's going to really be about just being able to, curate a great group of people and to be able to bring really unique experiences and opportunities to them, that we wouldn't otherwise be able to do at scale or for the public.
So our friend Steve has a questions about what you just said. After San Francisco, what's the plan in more locations?
Yeah, we've had tremendous interest from a number of developers. We're early stages of talking about what that next location, or at least where that next location would be. But we certainly have aspirations to open up in Tokyo. LA is a challenging market, but we have a lot of interest from people there. New York is an obvious one, Miami. But yes, the plan moving forward is to get San Francisco open, and then to begin to kind of look for our next opportunity, our next location. But as I said, the good news is we've already have, based on what we've put out there, we already have developers who have expressed an interest, and so we're pretty excited about our ambitions to expand, but we're really focusing on getting the San Francisco location off the ground first.
So if someone wanted to get involved at this point as an investor, there's a variety of ways to do that, but primarily through the convertible note. And there's some taken up, but there's 20 million that is sort of the bogey to raise. And then as soon as most of that's raised, you can start into construction, right?
Yep, you got it. Yeah, about 50, as long as about 15 million of that is raised, we'll be in a good place to be able to start construction. We have the option to continue to sell memberships, to offset that or to reduce the amount of equity needed. But we've chosen, to take the path of bringing in strategic investors and bringing in capital that doesn't put pressure on us to have to go out and immediately sell memberships. We'd rather do that the right way and do that over time. So yeah, in terms of getting involved, I think people hopefully have our information, but for those who want to just email me directly, it's just Josh, JOSH at SHŌ Group, SHO, the word group.com. I know that we have everyone's email addresses, and we'll be following up with all the participants. And making sure that, for those interested, we can provide access to our data room. We've put together a pretty substantial.
It's a good data room, by the way. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, and data room includes everything from our lease to our financial model. We brought in someone who has a private equity background to help us really develop a pretty comprehensive financial model that I think really presents a very frankly, probably overly conservative picture of what the project will entail. We like to really kind of play it safe. I think it's something that is important to us, that any commitments that we make in terms of to investors, we want to be able to deliver on those. So we're happy to share all that information.
Yeah, and for the record, there's a bunch of folks that are from the Family Office Insights community that are actively, and there's no promise of deploying capital, but they're actively looking and dug pretty deep. So I'm happy to share that with you offline to the audience if need be. And of course, we're super excited about it as well. So it's great to hear some of the updates and more from you, Josh. So let's do this. We'll make sure everybody has the information, your information, and vice versa, and get everybody in touch with you. And then if folks are interested, and again, if there's anybody that that might be interested in hearing this story, you can send them to the YouTube channel, just to put them in touch with Josh. And then I'm sure we'll be doing this a little bit shortly again, just because we want to make sure we keep this in front of everybody in the community. And super appreciate you doing this again, Josh. Taking the time.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate the opportunity. And for those on the webinar, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. Would love to chat with each of you and provide some any additional information that we can. We would love to have you involved.
Awesome. Thanks, Josh, again. And thank you, as I always say, folks, for sharing with us the only thing you can't make more of, and that's your time. Till next time, thanks. I'll talk to you, Josh.
Okay.